You really do. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. You really do. When you do dumb shit and start to lose, you hate to see it. You really do. When you drink too much, get lost in booze, you hate to see it. You really do.
All right, welcome back, Tokies. Week 3 is wrapped up, and honestly, I was a little disappointed in Week 3. I don't think it went according to plan for a lot of us, but I'm back here with my two co-hosts, Nick and Kirby, and we're gonna do our usual thing with a recap. We're gonna start it off. So we're going to go through some of the studs and duds from the last week. I'll take it off with, my guy, Lamar Jackson. He's just had back-to-back 40-point games. Super high on him. I have him in one of my leagues. And the dude's just a monster. I mean, he is the running back and the quarterback on the team. He does it all. Just a guy that nobody's going to sit this guy in their lineup. And honestly, a lot of people have been saying MVP season. He might repeat his MVP season that he had a couple years ago, and I would have to agree with that. Nick, Kirby, who are some of the studs that you guys saw when you were watching the games this week?
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up on that, I know earlier in the year, for the Ravens, Devin Duvernay was, popping off, and we kind of talked about. I wouldn't sleep on Mark Andrews. He's still Lamar's favorite target, and it's shown in the last two games. He's had 11 and 12 targets each of the last two games, 189 yards, one touchdown, and two touchdowns last week. So he's back-to-back 20-point games. So, I mean, the combination of those two is a lock. And Mark Andrews is up there for one of the best tight ends of the league.
Yeah, I mean, sticking in the same division, you got Amari Cooper. He's had back-to-back 100-plus yard games and touchdowns. I know he was someone who kind of had a disappointing year last year, kind of got overshadowed by CeeDee Lamb in the Cowboys offense. Go to Cleveland, it's kind of the unknown. You don't have Deshaun Watson first half of the season. The kind of quarterback questions there. Had a tough week 1. And has bounced back massive. He's looked really good. The Pittsburgh defense is kind of nothing like they're a legitimate defense. So seeing him kind of put up back-to-back pretty much 20-point games with 100 yards and a touchdown. He's looking like a stud 2 straight weeks and kind of another easier matchup against Atlanta this week. So you think he's going to be someone we're seeing definitely in people's starting lineups and looking like a favorite target. For old Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely down on a lot of the Browns, but they're performing better than I thought they would. Some of these guys are just too good to be hindered by a bad quarterback. So I'll definitely do a 180 on that. I would start some of these Browns, including Amari Cooper. A guy that I hate to see doing well, but I also like to see doing well because I picked him up off of the Fab is Jamal Williams. DeAndre Swift dealing with some injuries. And even without the injuries, this guy was just producing. I think he's had a touchdown in every game, or at least close to that. 2 touchdowns in this last game, 20 rushes, 87 yards. I mean, you see those numbers. That's a workhorse running back. And he came into the season, I think, a little undervalued just because he's never really had that workhorse lead. And he's just never been a guy that I've really looked at as someone I would pick up. But I did spend nearly 30% of my budget in one of my leagues to pick him up because I am the DeAndre Swift owner, and my other running back is Travis Etienne, who has just had a pretty lackluster season. So I had to spend 45 of my $100 to $150 to get him, and I'm glad I did because I didn't realize how many people were going to be trying to go for him at the level they were. I think the next highest one was 35, and then it was like 25, 20, 15. So I spent, I think, just the right amount to get him, but I'm happy with it. And if DeAndre Swift misses any amount of time, I really think Jamal Williams could be a humongous fantasy producer. Hopefully he doesn't turn out to be one of those duds where you pick up a guy and the lead guy's out and he just doesn't perform. But I think he's going to be a pretty good pickup should Swift miss. I think they're saying 2 games or something like that. So
yeah, I'm in Toker's Lounge. I have Swift, and luckily I was able to get Jamal for $1 early in the season, just as like a handcuff. But they're saying Swift, and we can touch upon it in the injury section, but is going to be out the next 2 games, probably through the bye week 6. So Jamal Williams will have some opportunities here. He's kind of picked up on the yardage that Swift has gained, but he's been the touchdown vulture, and so he's definitely the thorn in all DeAndre Swift owner's side. But if you have him, like we both do, we're in a good spot.
Yeah, Nick, you want to touch upon Marquise Hollywood Brown? I know that you probably watched more of the games than me and Kirby. So did you see anything from this guy?
Yeah, I mean he looks good. It's kind of Kyler. Their offensive line has not looked good. Kyler Murray's running all over the place, just trying to survive to try to get the ball out of his hands. And when he does, he's looking to Hollywood Brown. And I think kind of what we saw Hollywood Brown doing in the Ravens offense was being more of a big hit player. Kind of, not many receptions, not a lot of volume, but when he got the ball, he made it count, big 70, 80-yard touchdown catches from Lamar, just like letting it rip. And we're seeing a little bit different here in Arizona with Kyler Murray. He's getting on the ball. He's getting open and helping. So it looks like they have that kind of camaraderie, and that's where he's looking when he's in trouble, which is always nice to see. Obviously, you still have the DeAndre Hopkins looming over him. Marquise Brown being a little bit of a smaller guy, speedster, and I think that's going to change a little bit when DeAndre Hopkins comes back from his suspension. But he looks good, and you just like to see when someone's a favorite target of their quarterback, especially when you're in trouble.
Yeah, I think it's good news for anyone that has DeAndre Hopkins. I know Liv has him, and she's sitting in top place right now, first place in the league, which is funny because the top 1, 2, 3 in our league are Liv, Colby, and Melban. So I know she's waiting for him to come back. And when you see a guy like Marquise Hollywood Brown command 17 targets, you think that DeAndre Hopkins is going to come back and hopefully just be the monster that he always has been. Except for if he gets 17 targets, he's most likely catching 17 of them because he just doesn't drop the ball.
Yeah, the Boomer Sooner connection's real.
Yep. Some of the duds from this week. I mean, guy at the top. Everyone's used to this, unfortunately. Guy we were really high on, DJ Moore. He's just not doing it this year. I don't know if it's Baker. I don't know if it's the Panthers in general, because you see Christian McCaffrey. He's having a decent year, but he's not having a 2 overall draft pick year. So it's probably a little combination of both. I don't know. Maybe they're just waiting for Baker to, fit into that role a little better, whatever it is, because he did get traded close to the beginning of the season. But DJ Moore has just not had the season we were hoping for. You're seeing him not get separation from his defenders. He's not making those big plays that we're seeing him. Does he have a touchdown yet? Kirby, I know you have him, but
I think he has one.
yeah,
He has one,
touchdown.
and it's crazy because he's had 300,000-yard seasons, and I was looking at the Pro Football Stat, and each of those 3 seasons, he's had less yards per separation and still put up 1,000 yards receiving with probably, arguably, maybe a worse quarterback. And now he's getting more separation than he's ever gotten, and Baker still can't find him the ball. So yeah, I'm worried about him. He's now going to my bench for the time being, because I can't keep relying on this guy to put up 2 points when some of these games I need some production.
Yeah, he should absolutely be on the bench, which means this week he's going to score 2 touchdowns and have 150 yards. But
that's how it goes.
I guess after that, you can put him in.
When we're as host debating on renaming the duds to the DJ Moores, it's kind of deserved. I think this is 3 straight weeks, with him at the top of our list. So, sit him.
It's painful.
Yeah, some of these other guys, though, you wouldn't expect to see on here. Tyreek Hill, I mean, Jamar Chase, Kamara. Some of these guys, big names, and they're here on the duds. I know Jamar Chase. The Bengals have not been looking like they did last year. I don't know if it's kind of that Super Bowl hangover that we see some of these teams have, but he's just not making the catches. I mean, he's getting the targets, and usually when we see a guy getting almost double-digit targets, it's a good thing. But for Jamar Chase, it's just not really leading to any sort of production. And I know we've talked about it being their offensive line, but I'm starting to worry if it's just the team might not be the same team they were last year. Be it, did they get figured out by the defenses for more film? Have people just been shadowing Jamar Chase now that he had that big year? I'm not sure what it is, but he's not performing as, the 3 overall wide receiver that he was drafted as. You have other guys that you could be plugging and playing over him easily that you're feeling more confident in. And unfortunately, he's just not getting that production yet.
Yeah, I think on the studs list, the top receivers kind of topped the list the last few weeks, or at least week one. And I think we're seeing a lot of the secondary receivers starting to shine this week. And I think Justin Jefferson's another example where they're kind of being the focal point, and it's opening up opportunities for other receivers. I know Higgins and Boyd had a decent game last week, so I think that's exactly what it is. It's just not that they're being figured out, but they're just, the defenses are putting, they don't want to give up the big play to the big guy. I mean, exactly what happened to probably Tyreek. He's been going off the last 2 games, and then last week he only had 4 points. He had 2 receptions for 33 yards on 4 targets, and that's nothing like we've seen the first 2 weeks. So I do think, they played the Bills, who are a good defense, but I do feel like some of these defenses are starting to really use a lot of resources to focus on these top receivers threats.
What do you think about Kamara, Nick?
Yeah, I'm a Kamara owner. It's been frustrating. It's kind of like you always play that game where you try to convince yourself that you're right. So you don't want to believe kind of what your eyes are seeing. And I think with Kamara, it's an easy storyline for that. With the injury, it seemed like it was kind of withheld a little bit from the beginning of the year. It seems like he came in from camp with this injury. So he's just not getting the volume that you're used to seeing. I think there was a little bit more flashes from that game of being like, all right, they're trying to get him involved, they're trying to get him the ball, but the Saints just don't look great. They got a quarterback with a broken back. Not really what you want to see from the guy who's supposed to be getting the ball, and their team overall doesn't look great. So kind of Jameis coming back from an injury last year. I think it's just a time thing. Let Kamara heal up, kind of let that offense figure. They have a young receiving core, so kind of letting that figure out might help change the tide. But he's definitely the problem's running backs thin, so you can't. For me, it's like you can't really take the chance on sitting Kamara. But it's definitely frustrating, week in, week out. A guy you feel like you should be able to just pencil in for at least 10 points with a boom of 30 points, just not happening.
I think this week is going to be his week, though. He has a pretty easy matchup this week. It's the same feeling that I had last week for Derrick Henry. I had a big feeling for him, and I was actually he was in my list of guys that I would try to maybe sell high, because last week the Titans lost Taylor Lewan, their best lineman. So I thought, okay, he's got an easy matchup coming up. I think this might be the week that you try to trade him for a guy that commands a Derrick Henry price, but kind of go off the big week and trade for him. But I also think Kamara might have that week this week. I don't really know how you can have a quarterback with a broken back, but they're also saying there's no chance of injuring it further. I have no clue how that could possibly be true, but that's what they're saying. No chance of further injuring an already broken back, whatever that means. Take it as you will. Another dud. The Chargers defense. They just didn't look that great. Defense like that, though, it's one of those things where you're not going to drop the Chargers defense and try to go for someone else, because they're going to have those big weeks. They do have a lot of injuries, though, on their team. Is J.C. Jackson still injured, or was he in the game last week? I didn't get to catch that one.
Joey Bosa is on IR.
Well, yeah, so he's out. That's a massive guy that's out. So,
irreplaceable piece. So, J.C. Jackson, I know he didn't play week 1. He believe he suited up week 2 and 3, but he's not looking like the player was, probably due to injury, that he was with the Patriots. So,
and Sween passed the torch. Nick now has the trophy for playing a negative performance. It's tough to see when old Kamish is 0-3 and needs all the points he can get.
Yep. I hate to see it. You really do. Some close matchups this week. Your two hosts here, myself and Kirby, we had a very close matchup going in. It was kind of a battle of Kirby came out firing with a big early GGs when it was still really early, and I knew he was trying to do that to try to get some of that fantasy luck on his side. So I instantly hit him with the, I know what you're doing here, and we kind of went back and forth, but it turned into a very close game. I did end up winning by 1.14 points, which is one of my more narrow victories. I know it's looking like I have a little bit of maybe a horseshoe up my ass because last week I won by 2 points. This week I won by 1 points. So I'm trying to get that separation a little bit, but I
Two
felt
22s with twice the ammunition over here. This guy is just pulling up by the skin of his teeth. 2 points.
hey man, got to get a win by any means. I know you don't know what that means, but
Yeah, I mean, I had Dallas defense and kicker, and Dennis had CD Lamb going 7-point gap with Dennis in the league going into Monday Night Football. Dallas is a pretty good defense. They're going against Daniel Jones and the Giants, so I was looking pretty good the first half. And then CD had a miraculous, one-handed touchdown grab. That was awesome, classic CD form in the back of the end zone, and that was just pretty much pulled it to the point where it was over for good. Had a few sacks in there that got called back with penalties, which was unfortunate. But it was a close matchup, heartbreaking loss to go 1-2 for me.
I had recently just signed a deal for my condo to sell well over asking price. So I was on a little bit of a high. So I actually went to bed thinking I was guaranteed to lose. I think I went to bed at halftime when it was predicted that Kirby was going to win like 111 to like 104 or something like that. I woke up at like 2 or 3 in the morning, checked the stats, and got popped a little bit of a Woody. So nice little way to wake up.
Speaking of Woodies, looks like Kirby got the CD's nuts. A little
yes,
premonition
dragged.
from his last year team name, where he rode CD Lamb into the playoffs, and you didn't pick him up this year in the draft, and you just, you hate to see it.
You really do.
You really do.
Yeah, we also had a close matchup between Tom and Will. I wasn't able to follow their game exactly, but it's a 2.2 difference for Tom, and you just hate when you lose that close when you have a quarterback difference. Lamar for Will had 40 points, and Wentz, I think for Tom, had 7 points. So a 33-point difference just in one position, which seems like it could be a weak winner right there. But sadly for Will, he lost a close matchup.
And we'll let Nick take over on the last segment. He probably knows better than anyone. But Nick, we see you lost to your wife.
I did.
Things around the water cooler saying you might have a pie coming soon in your face. I don't know if that's confirmed, but
you know what? It was my wife's first fantasy win, so there is some positive out of this. I am a supporting, loving husband, so
chivalry is not dead, folks.
I was happy to see her secure her first win, albeit at my own loss and my 0-3 season in the Sunbeers League with our friends and family. But it was a battle. It came down to the last night, Monday night, and I put up a good fight. But like Kirby said, I started the Chargers defense. That was a 14.5-point swing between the Dallas defense and the Chargers, and it's just tough out there in the fantasy world for the commish. I've had a lot of good predictions. Unfortunately, maybe I should be playing daily fantasy. Like maybe that's where I shine. I get the guys right. I don't have them on my team. There's nothing I can do. I've suffered pretty drastically in Toker's Lounge. Like we can't overlook the fact that Jesse's 3-0, and there's been like 150 more points scored against me than Jesse. That's an entire that's a good week. That's a good week's worth of points that I've been scored more against me. That's tough. 446.8 points against in 3 weeks.
It's always tough to swallow that.
Yeah, sometimes the fantasy gods don't shine on you as you would like. All right, so we're going to get into some of our segments, but first we're going to hear a word from our sponsors. So we'll catch you guys after a quick word from our sponsors. Fellas, we all know you've been there. you're at a bar or maybe some other local watering hole, and you find a cute girl that you're talking to. You're talking her up, she's laughing at your jokes, you're making her feel good. You go to buy her a drink, accidentally drop your card on the ground. Go to bend over to pick it up, and oop, your plums pop right out the backside of your britches. Girl notices it, instantly walks away, and you're left there hanging. Do we have a product for you? The No Dixies underwear is the perfect counter to your plums popping out the backside. These things will cradle your plums nice and tight so that when you bend over, there's no chance of your tennis balls coming out the back. I know I have a pair myself, and let me tell you, I feel confident in them. I feel good. I don't have to sit there wondering, can I bend over in front of a lady or even in front of, a parent, a grandmother, anybody, because nobody wants to have those two awkward things hanging between your legs pop out when you're just trying to bend over to pick something up. So head on over to nodixies.com/tokies to get 25% off your first order of 4 or more boxers.
Yep. Disclaimer, works with all shapes and sizes. Plums, grapes, pears, oranges. We got a
Or
size for
raisins.
you.
Tic Tacs coming soon. All right, guys, back to our segments. We're going to go into our, the usual flash or fizzle. We're going to start it off with a guy that was a hot waiver target. I know this week was one of the more spicy waiver weeks, at least I think. I mean, I don't think a lot of guys in our league think that way, seeing as how many people still have $100 in their budget, including your own host, Nick. But some of the guys like me and Kirby did go and spend large budgets on some of these guys, Khalil Herbert being one of them. David Montgomery, we kind of thought Herbert was going to get into that swing a little earlier. At least I did. First 2 games, Montgomery didn't do that well, or maybe the first game, and then Montgomery had a pretty big game, and then this last game, Khalil Herbert just absolute monster, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, you see a guy like that, you think, how could this just be a one-hit wonder? It's hard for me to decide if I think flash or fizzle on this, but I'm going to go flash. I've just never really been a Montgomery guy. I've never really liked him, so I'm going to play with my heart right now and just say that Khalil Herbert is going to flash. I think if Montgomery misses some time, he could really shine, and it's going to be pretty hard for them to go back to Montgomery once they see what Khalil Herbert does. I think that they put a lot of stock into this guy, hoping that he could be this guy, and he's performing right now, so I'm going to go with flash for Khalil Herbert. Let's go to Nick, because I'm pretty sure Kirby's going to say flash too, since he did spend a lot of budget on him. Nick?
Yeah, I'm actually flash too. I'm not high on any Bears players, but I am high on him. They seem to be able to move the ball. I've heard multiple sources talk about how they've been pushing for him to be a bigger part of the offense, where they feel like Montgomery just isn't the right fit for their offense with the dynamic running ability. With Justin Fields. And they think that Khalil Herbert is a much better fit for that offense, where the RPO options, the quick dump downs, getting his ball in his hand. He's just a more dynamic, athletic player, and it seems to be the case. Whereas the passing game isn't there for the Bears, but he seems to, every time he has the ball, getting big chunk plays and making things happen. So as far as the Bears, I'm low on everybody there, but as far as Herbert, I think that he is going to continue to flash and just keep getting more and more plays. Seems like Montgomery was brought in to kind of fit a different style of offense, kind of that smash mouth, when they had those top defenses going back like 3-4 years ago, where their defense was unbelievable, run the clock, keep your defense fresh. They're going to keep the score low, and you just want to, gain yards and make that happen. And that's not the case anymore. And, with Justin Fields, it just opens up a whole new dynamic. So, I think he is going to be a flash, and I do think he's a solid pickup, especially, in a running back position where it's struggling.
Kirby?
Yeah, I would agree. But I'm also sipping on the copium because I put $23 on him.
What about Devonta Smith, Kirby? You think that this guy, he had a pretty large week this week. Do you think that what we're seeing from him, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, is going to continue, or do you think he's going to fizzle off once teams kind of find out that the Eagles are no joke this year?
Yeah, I mean, once again, maybe it's copium, but I'm also Team Flash. I do think the week one we saw AJ Brown just lighting up the defense, getting all the target share, and the last 2 weeks we've kind of seen Devonta Smith pick up more targets. I mean, with week 3, I think it was a season high, 12 targets, 8 receptions. I mean, yeah, 169 yards and a touchdown. It's kind of his breakout game. Sadly, he was on his bench, and if I played him, I would have beat you. But I do think like kind of the theme that we talked about with the duds. It's some of these guys, the top receivers are opening things up for the number 2s, and so if your number 2 is solid, which I think Devonta Smith is, I think he's going to continue this trend if with the high powered offense that the Eagles have.
Nick?
Yeah, I agree. I was kind of I was on the fence with him in the beginning of the year, but I agree with what Kirby says. I like their offense. They're just looking like a good team. Their defense is strong. I think people are looking at them as a contender for the Super Bowl, just with well-rounded team. And I think with that, you're just going to see him. You know, we saw the flashes of freakness at Alabama, and you know, as long as he has the ball in his hand, he's a dynamic player.
Yeah, I agree. This guy's a flash. I mean, the Eagles are just playing too good right now to not say that. And we saw this guy last year come out hot. It was his first year last year, so um, I just don't see how this guy could not come out here and just absolutely. Is this his first year?
A second.
No,
Okay, I
second year.
thought so. On Toke on the sleeper app, it says experience 1 year. I guess that means
Yeah, they have
1
an
year
R.
already. Yeah, okay.
They have an R for rookies.
I was
So
gonna
1
say
year
I was
experience.
99% sure we saw him last year, and he was pretty good last year. I mean, this guy's quick, and the Eagles are just on
He
fire.
was the so last year was his rookie year. He came off a Heisman season at Alabama. He put up
Yeah.
crazy numbers.
Yeah, it was insane.
His counterpart, I forget his name, went higher in the draft than him. People thought he was undersized, and people were worried about his ability.
He is a small guy,
Yeah. But you know,
170 pounds.
we've seen plenty of times with a lot of guys. You know, Tyreek Hill. You know, that you can produce as long as you have the right set of skills and you have a good quarterback that can get you the ball. So
Yeah, if you're uncovered, no one, nothing you can do. Doesn't matter how big you are. If you don't have a guy on you, you're catching the ball. A guy that I didn't think we would see on here, Mac Hollins. 11 targets, 8 receptions. He's kind of benefiting off of the lack of production from Devontae Adams. You know, I don't know what's going on in Las Vegas, but they're 0-3. So I'm thinking they're going to start switching things up. I'm going fizzle on this. I think this guy could get you a decent floor of 7 to 8 points a week. He's just, in my mind, not going to be getting 25 to 26 points. I think the squeaky wheel from Devontae Adams is going to start getting into the heads of these guys. You know, they paid big money for Devontae Adams. He's one of the best receivers in the league for many years now. So I think this guy is going to fizzle out, and Devontae Adams is going to come back into the spotlight. I just don't see them leaning towards Mac Hollins over Devontae Adams. I mean, the guy is big though, 6'4", 220 pounds. He's a big guy, and he's been in the league for a couple of years now. I'll tell you, I've never heard of him in my life, but I'm going to go fizzle on this. What about you guys?
yeah, I'm fizzled too. I do think. I don't think the comparisons to Devontae Adams. I think Devontae Adams is going to get him. Heard a stat this week. Devontae Adams and Derek Carr, 12 straight games together. They played together in college, and obviously three games here. 12 straight games with a touchdown between the two of them going back to college. Three games in the NFL, all touchdowns for Devontae Adams. So I think he's always going to get his. You know, he still had 10 targets. But I think the bigger comparison is going to be to people like Hunter Renfrow, who I think people were high on. I was kind of high on him too, but he's been hurt and he's battling injury. So I think when he comes back, he's always been a favorite target of Derek Carr, and I think that's going to eat away from Matt Collins. And then I think Darren Waller's off to a slow start, and I just think he's kind of like the Kyle Pitts conversation, just too big, too freak of an athlete not to eventually kind of get the ball in his hands. So I think with that, and the Raiders in general, like you said, is not sure what's going on over there, but I think the ship will turn around a little bit. So, with that being said, I think he's going to be a fizzle. It was definitely a good game. It was an impressive game, impressive stat line, but I do think he's going to fizzle out.
Kirby?
I would agree.
What about Zay Jones, Kirby? What do you think about that guy?
I'm Team Flash on Zay Jones. I think I think Nick was the one that talked about it. He was high on Trevor Lawrence coming into this year, and I think it's like I keep saying. I think that's the theme of this week. It's when the number one guy is getting a lot of looks. The second number two has a chance to pop, and he's had 11 targets, 10 receptions, 85 yards and a touchdown. I think with Christian Kirk obviously doing Christian Kirk things and drawing a lot of attention, it's opening up for Zay Jones, and I think he's going to keep producing within this offense throughout the season. I was debating about picking him up. I got him in Sun Beers, but I didn't get him in Toker's Lounge. I was debating about it, but just was too slow, and I think Jesse picked him up, and I think it's a good pickup going forward here.
Nick?
Yeah, I agree with everything Kirby said. I think the big thing that in my mind is when he said, Kirk is number one. This guy, Zay Jones, will be number two. I think that's kind of how I view everything. It's a passing league, and I think every team, you got to have two options. I think some teams, the guys you want to get is those number two options, that it's very clear, and I think Zay Jones is very clearly that guy. So stick away from the guys where you're like, they're going to spread it out. There's no real two guys. So I think there's always going to be, the one guy, he's going to get his. The second guy, if it's a clear guy, I think he's worth having, and I do think Zay Jones is clearly that number two in an offense that is on the up and up, and I think it's going to do better and better each week. So I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I basically just look at in my opinion, I look at the target share, and if you have double-digit targets, I'm happy with you, and I think and how could you not be with the possibility for points with that?
Yep, I'm going Flash too. I just think that Trevor Lawrence is finally heating up. He's becoming that guy that we thought he would be, so I'm going to go Flash on that and not beat a dead horse. We'll move on to Chris Olave, guy in the New Orleans. Already talked a little bit about the quarterback having a broken back, but it looks like that broken back is leaning towards Chris Olave. 2 games back-to-back, 13 targets. This one he just caught twice as many as the last game, so he had a little more production. I'm gonna go fizzle on this guy. I just don't think that New Orleans is gonna have the season we were hoping they were gonna have. I do think they're gonna try leaning more on Kamara just because that's their guy. And if there's any more injury to Jameis Winston, it's gonna be bad for them. I don't even know who their second guy is. Andy Dalton. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe if the Red Rocket comes in, maybe things could be not terrible. But he didn't do that great last year. I'm just going to go fizzle on this. I think Michael Thomas was battling a little bit of injury, I believe, in this game, or at least he came in with a little bit of injury fear. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I don't think that this guy is going to turn into their number one target, just personally. But guys, you want to argue?
Yeah, I'm going Flash. I think with the Kamara injury as well as Michael Thomas being constantly banged up, Jarvis Landry really not producing, with the Saints team being bad and always being behind and having to throw, as long as it doesn't matter the quarterback, they're going to have to throw it. And if you're getting 13 targets a game, I think you have a decent chance to be on the starting roster. So I'm Team Flash. I think he's going to keep it up.
Nick?
Yeah, I actually agree. Team Flash as well. I'm not, I'm not huge on the Saints offense, but I do think an NFL offense, you always see them week in and week out, at least show up and put up points. So that means someone has to catch the ball, someone needs to run the ball, someone needs to get in the end zone. I think this is going to be that guy. I think none of us were very high on Michael Thomas. He had a decent game, and I still kind of the narrative for me was he looks touchdown dependent, and this guy looks like he's going to be the guy. So if you remove his touchdown last week, or you just look at his targets and his receptions and yards, that's nice. You throw in a touchdown, and he's going to have a monster week. Not a huge guy, but he did run sub 4.3 40, so incredibly fast individual. And we know Jameis likes to sling the ball, and the big thing with wide receivers is they don't get punished when their quarterback throws an interception. That's on the quarterback. So as long as Jameis is throwing that ball, slinging that ball up for this guy to go run and catch it, I like him putting up big numbers.
And we'll cap it off with a tight end that has had a decent game. David Njoku. I know that he's always been kind of that big body that, he's a big threat. He's an athlete. He hasn't had the season he's supposed to have yet, but the Browns have just kind of been figuring things out. I'm going to go Team Flash on David Njoku. I just think that, and that is in regards to him as as a tight end. I just think the tight ends right now are so shallow in who you can really lean on. I think David Njoku, I don't think he's going to get you nine receptions, 89 yards, and touchdown every week. But I think as far as tight ends go, I'm going to go Team Flash with him. And if you have him, I would just leave him in your lineup. Hope you catch that week where he gets a touchdown, and just leave it as that, guys.
Team Fizzle on this one. I am not falling for this trap. This is an absolute honeypot trap. This guy can never finish a season. It feels like he's always hurt. I feel like he's one of those guys, you look at his stats and you're like, this is a big body dude. The quarterbacks like to throw it to him. He's a good end zone, red zone target, but I just feel like every time I've had him, every time someone's had him, I've been like, oh, thankfully I dodged that bullet. This guy always puts up duds, and I'm not going to fall for the trap.
Yeah, I also was reading after the game that his performance may have just been based on what the opponent's defensive scheme gave him that allowed him to kind of pop. Obviously, that feels like that's the case with every tight end. Some other than like the bona fide top 2-3 tight ends. Obviously the rest of them are gonna perform based on different schemes that allow them to pop off. So I'm Team Fizzle, and I agree with Nick. But I guess in the tight end scheme, it's if you're hurting for tight end, it's not a bad person to play.
All right. Moving on. We'll go to the I'm thinking I'm back segment. We got 3 guys in here who had pretty decent weeks. So I guess we'll just decide if we think they're back or if they're not. Devin Singletary, pretty impressive guy, gets 11 targets, 9 catches, 78 yards and a touchdown. I'm thinking he's not back. I don't think you can trust Devin Singletary. He's the most frustrating guy to have. The running back in the red zone is Josh Allen. That's just who it is. Most guys, you think, high-powered offense. I'll put the running back on that team. They're going to be in the red zone. He's going to get those. Oh, the ball got down on the 1-yard line. I'm going to get a score from him. But it's just Josh Allen that runs it in. It's not Devin Singletary. So I'm not thinking he's back. What do you guys think about him?
Yeah,
I
agree
with I agree with what you just said. I don't really have much to add. I couldn't agree more. I think you nailed it right on the head.
Kirby.
Yeah, once again, I fully agree.
All right, we'll just move on from that because I think that I put that guy in the category just because it's every year we see Devin Singletary have a big game and then it's like, well, he's back to Devin Singletary digit.
Nice.
CeeDee Lamb. I know there was a lot of question on whether CeeDee Lamb would be able to produce without Dak Prescott. So Kirby, you think this guy's back? I know you just lost to him, so I want to hear your takes on CeeDee Lamb.
I mean, my take is that when I say he's not back is because, in my opinion, there was never a question. He's had 11 plus targets each game. Yeah, the first game he had 2 receptions, but he's steadily increased now to game 3 where he had 8 receptions of those 12 and got a touchdown. So I don't think I think we always know what he's going to be. And the volume's there, and he's going to probably have some games like this where he pops off.
Nick?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Kirby said. He's just too good of a talent. There's a reason he was getting drafted where he was. He had a big year last year. He'll continue to produce. I don't think there's many people on the planet who can defend him. So just about the quarterback giving him the chances, getting the ball, and you like to hear, owner, dictator, GM, coach, probably backup quarterback over there, saying that there's no excuse, we need to get him the ball. So he's going to get his. And
Yeah, I mean, like I said, week 1, 11 targets, week 2, 11 targets, week 3, 12 targets. So, I mean, even with Dak or Cooper Rush, the volume's still there. So I'd be confident. Keep playing him.
Yeah, we said it last week when Scary Jerry tells you you need to give him the ball, you give him the ball. The guy's controlling your paycheck. Derrick Henry, Nick, you want to say some things about this? I'm sure you were pretty happy with his final production that you've drafted him high for. What do you think about this guy? You think he's back for the season?
Yeah, I'm thinking he's back. It's kind of the same narrative that Kirby said with CeeDee Lamb. I wasn't really too worried about him. He's just too good. I do really like seeing them get him more involved in the passing game and get him. The big thing with him is he needs to get going north-south. These little sweep outs to the outside, this guy needs to, once he gets going, he's tough. He's one of the most physically imposing running backs the NFL has ever seen, and you just need to get those guys going north-south with some speed and some head of steam. And I liked him getting the screens and getting the ball in his hand with some room to move. So he's back, and I was never really worried about it.
Kirby?
Yeah, no, not that he's worried about it, but the first 2 games with a potential first-round draft pick under 10 points is kind of frustrating. And so yeah, when it finally week 3 pops off at 22, the real big difference, the rushing was pretty much stayed the same, but the big difference was they finally used him in the passing game.
Yep.
The first 2 games he had 0 receptions, and now he had 5 receptions for 58 yards. And like Nick said, that's what you need to get the guy doing, moving north and south. He's a big body, hard to tackle. Give him the ball more. If the running game's not working, do some creative ways to get him the ball in the passing game. So, yeah, he's back. I mean, it's for in our Tokers Lounge League. Titus, I mean, Derrick Henry performing like Derrick Henry does is scary. His team's 3-0 with him, Chubb, and it's a scary combo.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the week.
Let's talk about the Sun Beers where I have Derrick Henry, Chubb, and Saquon Barkley.
That's a decent.
I like
it. Decent pickup right there. I think this week's going to be the test for how this Titans run offense is going to be. Like I mentioned earlier, they did lose Taylor Lewan, probably one of the most known linemen in all of the NFL, in my opinion. He's a monster. He's out for the season. Colts have one of the best run defenses. They're only allowing 77 rushing yards per game through 3 weeks. So we'll see if that holds up. But I think he's back. Pretty much what you guys said. Derrick Henry, guy's 250. It's LeBron James out there running the ball. You give him the ball, he's going to have a good game. Unless you can get somebody huge for him, you're not doing anything but playing him. So I think he's back. Moving on to our. This is a little bit more of a 2.5 gasm segment, but we're gonna run with it anyway. The 3 gasms. We're just gonna name off 3 guys and choose who we think might be the fake out of the 3. Starting off the QB, we have Derek Carr, Trevor Lawrence, and Kirk Cousins. Unfortunately, I'm going with Derek Carr as the fake gasm here. It's not very promising seeing Las Vegas starting 0-3. I'm really high on Trevor Lawrence. They were high on him coming into the season. He's finally settling into his role. I think that's going to continue, and I think Kirk Cousins just has too many weapons. If Dalvin Cook can stay healthy, I don't see him dropping. He's kind of that white bread quarterback guy, but he always gets those yards. He's a decent quarterback, so I'm going with Derek Carr. I just don't really like what I've seen with him so far. Guys?
Yeah, I'm going Kirk Cousins. Just on the kind of the opposite of what you're saying. I feel like their Carr and Cousins are basically the same quarterback, but I feel like the Vikings team is just better, that may not force Carr or Cousins to have to throw and carry the team on his back with the running game they have as well. Derek Carr, I feel like the team stinks. They're going to be behind. Their defense is awful. They're going to have to be throwing it. And I think if they can kind of figure out how to get Devontae Adams more involved, Carr will have more opportunity, more passes to kind of show off and prove himself. So I'm going Cousins as the fake.
Nick?
Just to be different, I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence,
Oh.
and I'm actually probably the highest on him. Simply because I agree with that, both of your points. I think all of these guys have that kind of dud potential, but I think Trevor Lawrence week in week out has the highest chance to throw up a dud. I think he has the worst weapons of all of them. I trust their offense the least. So that's really it. I think they all kind of fall into that kind of mid-tier. If you had one of these guys and you had a 2-quarterback league, I think you'd be thrilled. But as far as starting them as a QB1, which I have started 2 out of 3, and have debated on starting Cousins as well, it's where I'm at. So, but I think they're just kind of, I think it's a good comparison. I think they're all kind of lumped in that same area.
Moving on, we'll try to fly through these. I know we're getting to that 45-minute time, so we're going to try and fly through these last couple ones. We're going to go to wide receivers: Russell Gage, Tyler Boyd, Isaiah McKenzie. Kirby, you want to take it off?
Yeah, I'm going to go fake as him as Russell Gage. He had a great week 3, but I think once some of the other weapons, Chris Godwin, Julio, come back, he's going to fall off. I guess they're all kind of the same. That's why this week's kind of tough for the 3-gasm segment. I mean, Tyler Boyd, I think, is going to have his weeks that he pops off, but I'm going Russell Gage.
Nick?
I agree with that. Russell Gage is way further down the depth chart, I think. Isaiah McKenzie solves kind of that hole of Beasley for Josh Allen, so I think he's going to always kind of be a part of that. Tyler Boyd, I think he's higher up on the depth chart than Russell Gage is as far as weapons. So I think he's the fake gasm.
Yeah, it's Russell Gage for those reasons. Russell Gage just isn't a true starter on the team. The other 2 guys are. So I'm going Russell Gage. We'll move on to running backs. Ramondre Stevenson, Chase Edmonds, Dameon Pierce. Nick, you want to take the lead on this?
I think it's Ramondre Stevenson. I'm a huge Patriots fan. I think their team sucks. I wouldn't be surprised if they finished last in the division. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets finished ahead of them. So that's saying all I have to say on them. And he's a backup running back potentially. He gets a lot more touches than a traditional backup, but I just don't trust their offense. They just most likely lost their starting quarterback for some time. I just don't see them being able to be a threat in the passing game enough to allow people to open up the holes for running backs.
Kirby?
Yeah, it's between Stevenson and Edmonds is tough. I agree with everything Nick said, but his performance, why he finished last week with more points than the other 2 guys named, was because they used him in the passing game. That may be what's required for this team to kind of have a spark in offense instead of just running the ball. But I would agree it's probably Stevenson just because offense is one of the worst in the league.
Yeah, it's Stevenson across the board. The Dolphins are going to continue to play great, and Dameon Pierce is just a lead back. So Stevenson, I have no confidence in the Patriots offense at all with Brian Hoyer. We'll cap this off with our last segment, the Bad Boys. Myles Garrett, we got word that he was in a decent car accident over the weekend. It's funny, I had Kirby write up this segment, and he wrote in there he was trying to avoid an animal on the road, and when I heard that initially, I thought, I was avoiding an animal excuse. We've all been there. We've all been a little too sauced up on the leaf or a little too whizzed up on the drink. And, one thing led to another, and you're off the road. Next thing you know, the cops are talking to you. The only thing you can say is, an animal ran on the road, and I had to move over for it. So I think Myles Garrett must have probably did something along the lines of that. That's what I would think about it. But Myles Garrett, bad boy of the week. Anything you guys want to share on that guy, or what?
Just a disclaimer that the Toke Pod does not support drinking and driving or smoking and driving. We are a responsible podcast, so just a disclaimer on that.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about in our college days when we were idiots. We're
No,
we're sober now.
no. Never. Always supported it.
Yeah, I mean,
Responsible driving.
we've all been driving on the road. We've all been honoring the speed limit. We've seen a little chipmunk or a bunny or whatnot cross the road, and you can slow down or just swerve to the side. Miles Garrett got pretty banged up from this accident. Like, you don't just avoid an animal and then crash into a tree going 80 miles an hour and get injured. Something's fishy about it. So I don't know. Maybe just a bad driver. Maybe he was drunk or something like that and envisioned something. But I don't see. Unless you're talking about a moose or something that you panic and just swerve off to the road and can't stop in time and hit a tree. I don't see how you get this injured because you might miss some time with some muscle and bone injuries. I don't know how you just avoid an animal and do this much harm to yourself.
Yep. All right, we're going to quickly fly through our injuries this week. Up on the list are Christian McCaffrey, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, Dalvin Cook, Mac Jones, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Guys that I would think are more on the actual injured side right now are going to be DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, Mac Jones. I think that those are the guys that actually will miss some time. Obviously, Mac Jones is going to miss guaranteed time. DeAndre Swift, they say, is in Montgomery. I think Christian McCaffrey, he's injured, but the guy said it this last week. He pees in the wrong corner and he's on the injury list. So it's something to take note of. But I think those first three guys are the ones you want to either be finding replacements for two of them, or just kissing your season goodbye for Mac Jones and the Patriots. Anything on those guys of injuries, guys?
I think
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey is just that. It's just concerning. Obviously, he's glass, so you never want to see that. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, just a shifty back. He's running the ball. He's moving all over. So obviously, it was a good sign to see him come back in the game. But sometimes that's adrenaline. Sometimes they hit you with the shot. And with an ankle injury, he just needs to be able to be shifty out there. So that's just concerning of some guy who's putting up some serious numbers out there.
Kirby, anything on last minute?
Yeah, I'd just be worried about Christian McCaffrey. That like Nick said, he's glass. He hasn't produced this year. Panthers stink. So, I have him in one league for my number 2 pick. It's almost a disaster already. And I am playing the commission, both Some Beers and Toker's Lounge, and so he has a good chance to remedy his 0-3 in both leagues. And he has Amon-Ra and Toker's Lounge, and I may be graced if he doesn't play. So we'll see here. Or if he's not 100%.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for our podcast on week 3. Good luck tonight, anyone that has anyone playing. And we will see you guys next week. So signing off, it's Nick, Kirby, and Dennis.
Good luck, guys.
Take care.